Experience tells a story if you don't mind. Cause life to flow like.
Hey everybody, this is John Crow. It's been a while since I've recorded any Game Maker tutorials, but with the release of 0.9.8, I thought I would just go in and start kind of playing around and seeing what's new. The first obvious thing is if you go and take a look into the gameplay section, you're going to find that there are now game rules, and probably one of the easiest ways to learn the game rules, and not that they're easy, they're going to take a little bit of work for a lot of us. But in terms of the presets, these are a lot of these kind of pre-built high-level packages that you can apply to your games, and you kind of have to fill in the blanks with some of these. They're ready to go, but you need to hook your components and your behaviors to this. So it may be worthwhile to take a dive into that if you're really good at reverse engineering some of the tools. But I'm going to focus in on the rules and variables today. And from what I've learned from kind of reverse engineering and tinkering with these presets, I can show you a little bit about what I learned from the rules. And we're going to start with the concept of building a shop. And I'm just going to pull up my tablet here. So just to kind of show you what I have going on, we're going to have a couple of items that we can buy. We'll have a bike that sells for 300. We'll have a ghetto blaster on a table. We're selling just the ghetto blaster, and that's going to sell for 100. We have a collect message on each of our coins, and every time we collect a coin, we're going to be collecting 50 points or $50. And if we take a look at the message that's on the coin, so it's got a collectible on each one of these, and every time we collect a coin, we're going to send a message called earn 50. And because we're actually working within the new rules system, you could either use all, you could send the message to all. If earn 50 was being used by other behaviors or components in the scene, but if you know that this is only going to be used within the gameplay rule system, you can just target the message to the actual rules itself. And with that, I'm going to go in and start to look at how we can implement a couple of rules here. So the first rule we need to work on is a rule that takes the money that we've earned and adds it to an ongoing total that is our cash sum. So I'm going to use the add subtract number in the math rule. And the first thing usually we'll do is just double click in here and we'll give it a name. So call it something like, say, collect 50. Or that's going to kind of conflict with the name. So I'm just going to call it 50 or add 50. So the message required to trigger this rule would be the earn 50 that we send when we collect a coin. And when we collect that 50, we're going to need to update or add to this variable that we're going to keep a tally of, and this is going to be the cash, like essentially like our bank account. So we need to select a number variable to satisfy the red here, the error, because it's not got a value that it can work with. And we're going to create a new variable, and in the variables menu that opens up, we can create a variable down at the very bottom. And the variable is either going to be global or local, and I'm just leave it at global for now, so it's available outside of this rule set. And we're going to call this new rule, we're going to call it cash. And we're going to initialize it. We're going to give it a starting value of 0 because our character or the player isn't going to have any cash at this point. We can hide that, or we can actually have it show up on our HUD, on our heads-up display. So I'm going to have it show up at the start of the game at the left side of the HUD. And I'm not going to worry about the display order, but we're going to call this running tally here, players cash flow. I can spell. There we go. Cool. So now that I've created this variable, we can actually open up the variable and we can see that it's a global variable. It's a number. The variable is called cash. It has an initialized value of 0, and it's going to show up on the left side of our heads-up display when we tab into the game. And let's select that variable and let's use it to satisfy the value of the variable. Now that's a variable and that can change. the next thing that we need to do is we need to create another variable that actually adds 50. So if you look here, that's what we're trying to do. It adds 50 to our ongoing cash tally. So for that, we're going to create another variable. And that variable I'm going to call, again, it's going to be a global variable. I'm going to call this one collect 50. And the value of that variable is going to be 50. And I don't need to show this variable on the screen. This is just going to be used in the background. So I'm not going to show it on the heads-up display. We'll create that and we'll select that variable. So we have two variables. Our a message that allows us to collect 50 coins, and our cash tally that updates when we collect those coins. So this variable here is a fixed variable, essentially, and this cash value is a variable. It can vary depending on how much money we spend or how much money we collect. When we collect that $50 and it gets added to our total, we want to be able to update. We want to send a message that allows any other message that relies on our cash variable to be updated. So I'm going to call this one update cash. So I'm going to use that. So now we've got our first rule here, and let's see how this works if we can indeed update our cash. Let's check into the game. Put my pen down, and you can see up at the top left of the screen here we have our player's cash flow, and if I select a coin, that should update. So very quickly we have 300 coins, and we could go and spend it on our bike, or we could spend it on the ghetto blaster. And when we spend it on either one of them, we needed to subtract that amount from our cash flow to keep a running tally of how much money we have. Okay, so the first part is done. That looks good. So the next thing we need to do is determine whether or not we can actually buy a bike or not. And so, like I said, we've assigned some values to these bikes, 300 to the bike and to the ghetto blaster. So let's go back into the rules. And this time what we're going to have to do is start to compare our cash flow against a fixed value of the bikes. So we're going to use a comparison rule, and we're going to do a compare numbers. And I'm just going to control middle click and just wheel these out a little bit. And so let's say this one is going to be can I buy the bike? So in this case here, we need to update our cash. So the only way we can actually compare the number is if we update our cash value, and then we're going to compare the variable against our cash flow that we've collected from our coins or from the buying and selling of goods. And what we need to know, so this one here is can buy bike for 300 coins. And what I need to do then is, if the money I have is greater than or equals to the cost of the bike, and the cost of the bike is 300 coins. And if we can buy it, we should probably send a message that we can buy the bike. We're going to use the can buy bike to trigger a toggle behavior that's going to allow us to make the transaction or not. So in terms of comparing the numbers, we could say compare our cash flow versus the bike cost. So this goes there. So that's good. Let's go and build another one in here. I'm going to duplicate that. Or, actually, let's try something else. I think I can actually... I don't want to edit it. I thought there was a way I could go in here. Add rule. That's it. Yeah, so if you look in here, you can actually just add your rule from the top. In this case here, we're going to once again compare numbers. And in this case, I cannot buy the bike. This is the branch that's going to control that. So once again, we're going to update our cash. The variable that we're going to update is our cash variable. And if our money is lower than our fixed variable of 300, then in this case we cannot buy the bike. Okay, so now we need to actually use these two variables. And so let me pull up my pen here again. So every time we update our cash, we look at the amount of cash we have on hand, and then we compare whether or not the amount of cash is greater than or equals to our fixed value of 300 for the bike. If it is greater than this number, then we have enough to buy the bike, and we can trigger a message that gets sent out to behaviors or components. On the other hand, if the update cash coming from earning our money, if that variable is less than our fixed value of 300, then we need to send a message that we cannot buy the bike. So what we're looking to do here is we're really looking to take these two messages, and we're going to drive those messages through a toggle value or a toggle behavior. So we can kind of get an either or. There's a new switch behavior. I'm sure you could use that one as well. I haven't tried it yet, but again, you can use these in any way you want, which is kind of cool. So let's go and add another rule to the can, or let's say this rule here is not can buy bike. Call it buy bike question mark. And if we can buy the bike, so can buy the bike will actually allow us to subtract the money from our cash flow. So let's go and add another rule. And in this case here, we want to subtract from our cash flow. So if we get the message that we can buy the bike, then what we need to do is, once again, look at our cash, and we need to subtract 300 from our bank account, and then we need to update our cash flow again. Excuse me. So anytime we do any kind of math, we definitely want to think about updating our cash flow. So let's see, how can we then go ahead and use our tool here again. How can we use the two messages along with the toggle behavior to trigger the ability to buy the bike? Maybe what we'll do is use some kind of a spawn to make this happen. You know, like maybe the bike itself is kind of like the showcase, and she's not selling us this bike, she's going to give us like a spawn bike that appears over here somewhere. So to make that happen, I think the best thing we can do is to maybe look up, I'm going to grab a logic box, or a logic donut, or whatever you want to call it. It seems like they've gotten a little bit more complex, but at least in here you can rotate them, and now they can kind of have different angles. So they're a little bit more, I don't know, they've got more meat on them than we did before, but they still need a little bit of work. Anyways, I'm going to go in and set up a behavior. Let's go with a message broadcaster. And the message broadcaster here is going to allow us to buy the bike. So if you'll remember back in our gameplay, our game rules, when we can buy the bike, we want 300 to be subtracted from our cash flow. But the only way we can buy the bike is if we have enough cash in our bank. So largely the toggle true is going to trigger this message. So let's say, I'm going to close this down. I'm going to wait for a broadcast, and I'm going to use the interact, just the E key for now, to send the message buy bike. And that buy bike message needs to go to my rules. And it doesn't need to happen only once, it can happen many times. But let's put that, put my pen here. I think the hotkeys have changed. Something feels a little bit off. I feel like O used to be the rotate tool, but now it's R, and it feels really strange to me. Let's put an indicator on this as well too. The indicator is useful because anytime I have the interact message, I want to be able to walk up to it and know that I can interact with it. So I'm going to display the interaction, and I'm going to say buy this bike. We don't need any linked quests. That display over, we'll keep that on, and everything else, let's leave like so. So in order to trigger this, of course, we need to have a toggle behavior. So let's go down into our add components, and let's go, where are you? Toggle behavior. There it is right there. And we're going to start with this behavior off. Obviously, we can't buy the bike because we don't have enough cash. So what we're going to want to do then is send the buy the bike once we can buy the bike. And if we can't buy the bike, we'll never ever trigger this buy bike, or we'll never have the possibility to create this interaction. So let's say cannot buy the bike. And I suppose we need to be able to receive the bike as well, because clearly I'm not like getting this bike here. I can't grab it or anything. So I'll have to spawn the bike. So actually I'll just use this bike here, and let's go and do an asset spawner. I'll spawn it like 3 units over to the side. Something like that. And I'm going to spawn in one of my bikes. Spawn that in. I don't need a behavior or anything, but actually let's actually set up a preset for this instead. I'm just going to turn that back to none. Set that off. I'm going to call this one my bike, and I'm going to give it a collectible, and the collectible is going to have a message. I'm going to call that collect.bike. Let's have sound with our bike collection. So there's a whole bunch of new things in here. That was like 55 pages. Let's just go with the equip, generic equip. And we don't need to send this to the rules. Right now I'm not going to tie that into anything. I'm not like collecting any bikes or anything, so I'm just going to put it to all for now. And in order to actually work with this object to collect it, I don't need the asset spawner. I'm just going to go and save this as a preset. Let's call this one bike buy. So now that that's exported as a preset, I'm going to delete the collectible, and I'm just going to put an asset spawner back on this and use a preset and spawn the bike preset. But the bike preset is only going to happen when we get the buy bike message. And it's going to spawn the bike 3.5 units over. And I'm going to call it bike spawner. So we can also tie in a few things here as well. If you look at the logic box, so once that toggle goes on, we can walk up to the bike and we can buy the bike. So what if we actually take our NPC here and give her a speaker component, and she's going to say, hey, want to buy this bike? We'll leave that up for like 3 seconds. She can always look at us. Let's only have her speak this message when we can buy the bike. I don't want the message when I'm buying the bike, because why would she ask me the question if I'm already buying the bike? But if we can buy the bike, she's going to kind of pipe up and be like, hey, you want to buy this bike? And so right now I'm just using the text display. I don't think I need anything else here. We could use this to trigger some animation decorations if we wanted to, but for now I'm going to set the message to send to none. And let's also put an animated decoration on her as well, just so she can add in, let's see, something that she can gesture when I can buy the bike, some kind of like wave or something like that. Maybe like hi, we'll use that. And I don't need oh, that's a preview animation, sorry. This is new as well too. The preview animation allows you to like do exactly that, preview an animation. So that's actually kind of cool. You can just, we don't want her eating, but where'd that hi go? Hi. Yeah, so hey, come and buy the bike. Hey, come and buy the bike. So she's going to be kind of incessant, but whatever. Let's go none. So the animation we're going to use is hi. I can just type in here. We only want it to play one time. And the message that we receive in order to play it is going to be can buy bike. And I don't think it should be interruptible, but let's just put that in there. So now we should be starting to get somewhere. I'm going to also add in just a couple more coins as well. So let's just say we are fortunate enough to be able to buy this bike. So I'm just going to duplicate a bunch more coins like over here and over here. Let's tab into that now. So I've got no cash. I can't buy the bike. Nope. You just have to figure out a way to turn off that message. Up here, 250, 300. So Creta's like, hey, you want to buy this bike? So I go up here, I can. Whoa, they robbed me. What the heck? I've got no cash flow. I spent this money on this bike. Hey, give me more money. So try that again. So cash. I'm sure she's going to be willing to collect my cash now. And again, she's like, hey, can we spend some more money? And do I get my bike? Nope. She takes my money and no bike. Okay, so let's figure that out. So we got the system working here, but clearly there's either an unscrupulous shop dealer or I've made some kind of mistake here. So let's just zoom into the bike. Let's add logic. So buy bike, yeah, that should. Oh, I know what it is. I believe I'm sending the buy bike to the rules. And I should probably send it. I think, anyways. Let's see. Buy this bike. I'm going to send it to all. Yeah, so you can see I'm sending it to the rules and not to this object. Excuse me. So let's try that. That should work now. Tab back in. Yeah, you want to buy the bike? I can come in here, and now I can buy the bike, and I can collect it. So if I go back to another run, I can buy the bike again. So just tabbing back out, if we want to make a couple of other adjustments, and the main adjustment I was thinking of was along the left side of our interface here, we've got access to information. We have our cash. Maybe we can also have the information about the item costs, so we can always take a look at our cash flow and kind of compare it against whatever things we might want to buy. And then we'll go in and add a field here for this ghetto blaster. So a couple things might need to change in the gameplay in terms of the cost of our bicycle. Right now we're actually using a fixed value, and the fixed value, unfortunately, I can't expose to the heads-up display. If I want to expose my costs to the heads-up display, I'm going to need to create them as variables. And at the moment, all I have is the cash variable and my collect 50 variable. So what I could do is I could turn this fixed value into a variable that has a value of 300. So I'm going to select a number variable. I'd have to add a variable. And you have to be careful because I believe you have a limit of variables that you can use in an experience. It didn't seem like a lot to me, but again, that's probably going to grow as this gets more stable. However, I'm going to call this one my bicycle. Actually, let's just call it bike cost. That's actually the name that we're going to see internally. And its value is 300. But when we show it in our heads-up display and we show it at the left side of the HUD, it's going to be called bicycle. We'll create that variable and we'll drop it into our bike cost here. So we can reuse that variable here as well. Bike cost. So now just by making that change, and if I tab back into the game, we have our two items. And if I start collecting cash, coin there, so credit turns and talks to me. And if I go and buy that bike now, I can see that it's working again. Okay, that's cool. So we've got our first kind of component of our shop system here. I've got 400 cash, so if I spend the money, I should have 100 left and collect the bike. And maybe I could come over here and buy a ghetto blaster as well. So let's kind of finish off with that and just kind of summarize everything that we've learned so far. So it's a good idea to save your scene. Let's go ahead and save that. I will dive back into our gameplay and add a couple more rules and variables. So back into the gameplay, back into the game rules. We've already got ourselves our cash, so that's how much money we're spending there. We don't really need to work with that. Let's go and start to set up some new comparisons for the other items we might want to buy. So I'm going to go to rules. I'm going to build a new kind of rule hierarchy because this is a different object, and I'm going to compare numbers. And I'm going to use the same kinds of comparisons that I have up here for comparing versus the bike cost. So this is by stereo. And do I have enough to buy a stereo? Question mark? All right, so the first thing we need to do again is always update our cache. And we are comparing the variable that we're going to generate against our cash. So this is our cash flow, so we've been earning money. And what we need to do is, again, determine whether or not we have greater or equals the amount of money as to the cost of our stereo. And before we could use a fixed value of 100, but because I exposed the byte cost to the heads-up display, I'm going to do the same thing for the stereo. So let's go and add another variable. Keep it global, and we'll call this one the stereo cost. And its value is going to be 100. We're going to add it to the HUD. We're going to add it to the left side. And let's give it a name. We'll call it stereo cost. Create that variable, and we'll use that variable. And of course, if we can't afford it, then we can buy stereo. And I could duplicate this one. And this one's going to be not enough funds. Stereo. So we update our cache, we look at our cash flow, and in this case, if it's lower than the amount of our stereo, we cannot. So then we would need to have another message that allows us to actually subtract that stereo amount from our funds. And in this case here, I would use a fixed value because I don't need to show that in my heads-up display. And I think it's still a little bit more efficient to use a fixed value, I'm guessing, than to just overwhelm with all these variables. I could be wrong. If anyone knows any different, that'd be cool to know. I'm going to add another rule, and this rule here is going to be to add subtract the cost of the byte from our cash flow. So like before, if we can buy the stereo, then what we're going to need to do is take our cash flow, and we're going to subtract 100 from it. And once we do that, we're going to need to update our cash flow again. And so it's just left to us to go and tie can buy stereo, cannot buy stereo, and buy stereo back into our components and behaviors. And I should be able to do that pretty easily. I've already got kind of a template for that, in the sense that I can build a preset out of this. So let me just go in and make it collectible. I'm going to call that collect.stereo. And let's give it a sound because we can. I'm just going to make a button there. And we don't really need to worry about where it's going. I'm just going to keep it all for now, and we'll call that stereo. And we'll offload that as a preset. Cool. And then we can just get rid of that collectible on it and replace it with an asset spawner that spawns that preset. And let's spawn the preset over here. So that would be negative 3.5. Oh, it's on an angle. Yeah, maybe something like that. I guess I could just turn the stereo and make it straight, but put it like there. And maybe what I also need is a table where it's going to go as well. So I think it's something like that. Okay, so this is where you're going to go pick it up. And this guy only talks when you can buy the stereo. So we'll give him a speaker component, and we'll say, yeah, boss. Buy this now. and we've run out of room. There's always a way around this. Let's see if they've prevented this. No. That was if you deselect it, reselect it. There we go. I don't know what triggers that, but you can kind of hack your way around the limitations there. About 3.5 seconds. We'll wait for the message, and he only turns around and tells us we can buy it when we can buy the stereo. So that's cool. And it doesn't need to send any trigger. We're just going to send no messages to send. Sorry, at this point, we can steal the interaction that we need and bring it over here. We'll just duplicate it. And the message to send in this case is by stereo. And we can set the toggle messages similarly as well. So can buy stereo and cannot buy stereo. All right, that should do it, I think. Got a collect on it. It's spawning the asset. We got the right message. That's right. We don't have a message being sent here. So I think this one is, what was the message there? I think it was buy bike. Yeah, buy bike. So this message here is buy stereo. All right, let's do one last tab in, and let's see how this goes. So we've got our stereo cost. We've got our bicycle. I should call that bicycle cost. I'll fix that. Game rules. Go to my variables. Bike cost. So we'll just rename that HUD down there. Bicycle cost. Close that up. Close that, and tab back in. Great. So we've got our player's cash flow, we've got our bicycle cost, we've got our stereo cost, and if I go here, you see at $100 I can already buy the stereo. So I can go on with the stereo, buy a stereo, and I only have $200. I can still buy another stereo if I wanted to. Buy another stereo. So my cash flow there just went up. I'm probably not subtracting 100, so let's go back into the gameplay. Let's go back into the rules, and yeah, here it is. Minus 100. There we go. All right, everything's looking good. Collect 50, nothing. Collect 100. He's happy to sell us anything. We buy it. Money goes down to 50. Pick it up. We collect another coin. We were able to buy another stereo. We got that one. We got the $0. We got 2 coins. Again, he's willing to sell us as many stereos as we could possibly want. But what we want is a bike. So now Coretta is saying, hey, come on, buy the bike instead, buddy. And we can buy the bike and we're left with $50. So I don't think I have enough. Oh, yeah, I will. I'm going to make a choice here. I can buy 1 bike or 3 stereos. I'm going to have someone do that. So, next in the tutorial series, might be looking at how you could sell these assets back, maybe to like a pawn shop if you really need the coin. You can make a pretty robust economy system just using some of these basic rules. Anyways, I hope you learned something from this. My name is John Crow. This has been a Game Maker 0.9.8 tutorial. Have a good one. Take it easy.